I woke up realizing my parents had already decided something I wasn't supposed to survive. Not in words, not in arguments, just in silence, so clean it felt like a verdict already signed. I'm Julia Hartwell, was 33 the night her family didn't come for her. The first thing I saw was fluorescent light pressing into my eyes like it had weight. The second was the whiteboard at the end of the hospital bed. Family notified, declined to come. I remember staring at it too long, waiting for it to change. Like maybe I was misreading English. Like maybe pain had rewritten language. My ribs didn't agree. Something inside me felt stacked wrong. Breathing hurt in a way that made every inhale feel negotiated. A nurse came in, Dana. I didn't know her name yet, but I remember how she paused at the doorway too long, like she already knew what she was walking into. She checked my IV, glanced at the chart, then didn't leave. That's how I knew. She wasn't here for medicine. "I called your emergency contact," she said quietly. I nodded once, that automatic kind of nod you do when you still believe there might be a softer version of reality coming next. There wasn't. She looked down at the chart again, then back at me like she was choosing every word carefully. "Your mother said they're hosting Thanksgiving," she said. "She said they'd come if it gets worse." A pause, then the part she probably didn't want to say out loud. "She said, we'll come if she dies." The room didn't change, but something inside me did. I actually laughed once, not because it was funny, because my brain couldn't find the right emotional category and defaulted to something broken. Dana didn't correct it. She just stood there like she'd seen this kind of silence before and knew it never ended clean. What they didn't know, what none of them ever really cared to know, was that I wasn't some distant daughter waiting for attention. I was a pediatric ICU nurse. I spent my life holding other people's children alive while parents screamed into hallway walls and monitors refused to calm down. I was the person who stayed steady when everything else collapsed. Apparently, that didn't include my own family. In my family, there were roles. My sister Megan was the story, the one who showed up in photos, in dinners, in laughter that sounded rehearsed but warm enough to pass. And I was the explanation. "She works with sick kids," my mother would say, like she was apologizing for me without saying sorry. Sometimes she'd add, softer, almost affectionate in a way that still cut, "Our other one." Like I was an extra object on a table no one quite needed. So when I ended up in that hospital bed, 4 broken ribs, internal bleeding, a spleen barely holding its place, it wasn't shock that hit me the hardest. It was confirmation. Then the man in the black jacket appeared. No warning, no introduction that made sense, just a hospital clerk setting a brown paper box on my tray table like it belonged there. "Your bill's been settled," she said casually. I blinked at her. "Settled?" She nodded. "Cash payment, full amount." $80-something thousand, like it was a dinner tab. Before I could ask anything else, she added one more thing. "He said not to open it until you're home." Then she left. The box smelled like cedar, and that smell stayed longer than the pain medication ever did. When I was discharged, no one came. Not my mother, not my father, not Megan. Just my coworker Rena, who showed up in a sweatshirt and silence, like she understood there were questions that didn't need asking because the answers already lived in the space between words. We didn't talk about my family. We didn't have to. My apartment felt wrong when I got back, too still, like it had been waiting for me to admit something I wasn't ready to say out loud. The cedar box sat on my counter. I didn't touch it. Not yet. 2 days later, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Miss Brewster?" a man said. "My name is Daniel Frost. I'm an attorney." Something about his voice made my body go still before my mind caught up. "I'm calling about your grandfather." That name hadn't existed in my world for 16 years. Not spoken, not acknowledged, not allowed. My grandfather had been erased the way families erase people they don't know how to argue with. My mother's version was simple, difficult. Then later, unstable. Then finally, nothing at all. Frost told me he had died 3 weeks earlier, and I was his sole beneficiary. I sat in my car after the call without moving, engine running, hands frozen on the wheel. It didn't feel like grief. It felt like missing a life I wasn't told I was still part of. When I met Frost in person, he didn't prepare me gently. He opened a folder and placed my entire life in front of me like paperwork, property, accounts, a trust I had never heard of. Then, quietly, he was the man who paid your hospital bill. The cedar box stopped being mysterious after that. It became evidence. My hands shook when I finally opened it in his office. Inside were letters, 16 of them. One for every year I had been erased from his life. Some sealed, some opened and resealed, like he couldn't decide whether hope should stay untouched or be allowed to rot honestly. Under them were documents. A scholarship I thought came from some anonymous healthcare fund. It didn't. It came from him. My grandfather had been quietly paying for my education, while my parents quietly removed him from existence. I didn't cry, not at first. I did something worse. I calculated how long it takes to keep writing letters no one answers, how much it costs to fund a life from a distance, how much love survives when it is never returned. Then I called my mother. She answered like I was interrupting something more important than me. "Grandpa died," I said. "I know," she replied immediately. No hesitation, no emotion, just certainty. "No one told me." A pause. Then the familiar tone returned, the one that always ended conversations before they became dangerous. "Judy," she said, "you don't understand what he did to this family." I already knew that sentence. It was always how truth got buried. I asked anyway. "Why?" A breath, controlled, tight. "Don't dig into old things," she said. "It's better if you don't know." Click. She hung up. That night I called my Aunt Pam. She didn't protect anyone. She didn't soften anything. "That Thanksgiving," she said, "your grandfather told your mother she was being cruel to you." A pause, background noise, a kitchen timer, life continuing like nothing important was being revealed. "He didn't yell," she added. "He just said it plainly, and your mother couldn't let that stand." My stomach tightened. "So she rewrote him," Pam said. "Told everyone he was unstable, that he was the problem." "And no one stopped her?" Silence. Then, "Your father didn't want conflict, and your grandfather, he stopped coming." Stopped coming. Like love could be turned off if enough people agreed it was inconvenient. That night, I opened one letter. His handwriting was uneven, like each word cost him something. "I don't need you to answer," it began. "I just need you to know I still show up for you." That was the moment everything inside me shifted, not dramatically, not cleanly, just enough to break the structure I had built my entire life on. I didn't feel saved. I didn't feel chosen. I felt late. Too late to respond. Too late to undo. Too late to ask questions that should have been asked when silence first started pretending to be normal. Now the cedar box sits open on my kitchen table. Some nights I read the letters in no order. Some nights I don't touch them at all. And my mother still calls sometimes. We talk about nothing. Carefully. Like as long as we keep the conversation shallow enough, the truth won't rise again.